We begin with Corpus Christi city employees and their overtime. Apparently, the policy on overtime is being questioned by an audit committee wanting to know what the policy actually says and whether it's being enforced correctly. It's our top story tonight.
And in the fiscal year 2018, the overtime budget was 9.5 and exceeded the budget to 13.6.
That overtime budget and the city's policy is what's under scrutiny. If you've ever worked overtime, you know the extra money earned comes in handy. But now the city's audit committee is looking into whether its overtime policy is working or lacking. The committee wants to know if city management is ensuring that overtime for all employees is authorized, justified, and exactly who is monitoring the OT.
And they're looking at it on a department by department basis, and instead of waiting till after the fact, we were told today that management will be looking at overtime on a monthly basis, so they'll be watching it very closely.
The big push for oversight in this area is because overtime for Corpus Christi city employees has doubled over the last 7 years. City leaders hope to cut back on some of the overtime hours by adding more staffing where needed.